Hi everyone. It's me, your Lich Junior, and today I'm here with Noriko.
Hi.
Hey. So we we are very scuffed about this, and you all have to deal with that. But we both happen to love a certain anime and manga series called One Piece. And we decided, because we are absolutely insane, we would rewatch this show again. Uh, and about 5 episodes a week, and then talk about it on Noriko's channel. And it's gonna be a long time. And maybe by the time we're caught up, they'll finish Wano.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
probably not.
I mean, I did the math, and I think it'll take us about 2 years. At 5 episodes a week, it'll take us about 2 years to catch up.
Yeah.
Assuming we don't ever do any of the movies.
Oh, we should
Which
do
I
the
mean,
movies.
right? Like I'm super into it because I love the movies. Most of them are pretty fun. Uh,
Yeah.
I've, yeah, I love the movies. Do you have? Yeah, I was about to ask if you have a favorite movie, but we should save that for when we're doing the movies. When we do the movies,
Yeah.
maybe we can do like a tier list and like rate where we like them. That'd be super cool. Um,
Yeah,
so
totally.
yeah, so if you haven't guessed, audience by now, this is gonna be a bit freeform for a little bit till we figure out how to do a podcast. So today we're gonna be discussing the first 5 episodes of One Piece. And before we dive into the episodes, I did write down some very small notes. The East Blue arc, the start of One Piece, began airing in October of 1999. Uh, which
Man.
which makes us all feel old. And if this is your first time watching One Piece and you're watching One Piece with us, um, and you're used to like new modern anime, there's just some disclaimers. Originally, One Piece was made at a time when anime were a lot less popular, especially in the West, and it had a really small budget. Um, and they didn't know One Piece was going to become as popular as it was when they made the anime. So and this is something that when I like try to suggest One Piece to friends is such a huge hurdle because they're so used to modern anime being like crazily animated, and I'm like, One Piece came out like 20 years ago. Like it's rough. It's a cartoon from the 90s. And we kind of forget it because the animation evolves as the show goes on. But man, rewatching those early episodes again, I'm like, wow, this animation is rough. Um, and that's something I noticed and I really want to bring up if it's your first time watching it, listeners. Stick with it. The animation gets so much better, and you literally get to watch a
Oh,
show grow
yes.
up with you, which is something that's super cool because, like, for people like me who've been watching One Piece since the Four Kids dub, uh, which we're not discussing in great detail, but if you know anything about the Four Kids dub, it's very funny. Um, that was definitely my first introduction to One Piece. Uh, which it's a miracle I love it as much as I do. Um, but yeah, those early, I think about the first 100 episodes or so of One Piece are pretty rough. Once you hit past episode 64 though, I think it actually starts to like rocket up in quality. Um but yeah, just it's very interesting to me that one of the most popular animes and manga ever had a small budget and started with a lot of like really crappy animation and still images, like zooming in on a still image while dialogue plays. I always find that super funny when I start rewatching One Piece. So to dive into episode one, we are hit with a classic that I think we should talk about, and that's the opening,
Oh,
performed
God,
by
it's so good.
Hiroshi Kitadani. We are. So I was gonna ask you if you're one of like the super fans who like loves We Are or not. And you kind of hinted that already. So how do you like the opening for the first opening of One Piece? Noriko.
Okay, so the thing is, I grew up with the German dub,
Oh,
So we had a German version of We Are.
really? I didn't know that. That sounds
Yes.
very. I'm gonna have to listen to that at some point. That's exciting. All
So
right.
I got super chills watching the opening again.
Are you watching it in German? Like, are you rewatching it with the original German that you watched growing up? Or are you watching the Japanese
Um,
now?
I watched it subbed.
Okay, okay, okay. All right. Makes sense. Makes sense. So I think again, my first interaction with One Piece was the Four Kids dub. Um, so I got the One Piece rap as a kid,
Oh god.
which is very different than We Are. I wish we got We Are, because it's significantly better than the Four Kids rap. I love We Are though. It's I think it is in my top five openings.
It's
Um,
so good.
it's really good, and I can sing while it's playing. I can sing probably 90% of it in Japanese if I have the
Same.
kanji, like the katakana, in front of me. It's one of those anime songs I could probably pull off at karaoke if I had to. Um, it's so good. Um, would you consider it in like one of your top five openings? I think doing like an opening tier list at some point would be super cool, but like there's so many. Uh,
It's definitely in the top 5.
yeah, I it's so good, and I don't think another opening comes close. For a little while. Now,
Yeah.
there is an opening to season one of One Piece. There's also an ending theme, which I forgot about. But our ending
Same.
theme is called Memories, performed by Maki Otsuki. And it is so low tempo and mellow. It feels so weird. Because usually One Piece, like, it's a shonen battle anime, right? With a lot of comedy. It tends to end on a high
Hmm.
note, like a cliffhanger, and then it cuts right into this like super low tempo sultry ballad, and I'm like, what are you doing? I'm in the middle of a fight. Why are you playing this? I don't know. I don't love the ending. I think it's a perfectly good song. Like, it's nice. I just don't think it tends to match the tone of One Piece. uh
Hmm.
I think that would be my biggest complaint with the ending, which is again called Memories. um But yeah, so the opening and ending are out of the way. We Are is fantastic, Memories is super weird, and everyone forgets about it, which is kind of punny. Let's dive right into episode 1, titled Ore wa Luffy, Kaizaku ni naru otoko da. Or I am Luffy, the man who will be king of the pirates. Um, how do you like that as a title for our first episode?
It's a perfect title, but I was so confused that Romance Dawn is in episode 1.
Okay, so that's a very good point. Thank you. I love that you went there because Romance Dawn was also the first episode I saw, and it wasn't until later when I saw the Funimation that found out that the original release in the West they changed the order of the episodes. They changed it all around, so we got Romance Dawn first. And I think in the manga it starts with Romance Dawn first.
Yeah, Romance Dawn is chapter 1.
Yes,
A
which is
50-page chapter.
Yes, which is fantastic, and I love it for many reasons. But
It
yes,
was a
it is
perfect
super weird.
opening.
It is super weird that they decide to jump into like chapter 2 right at the start and then go back to chapter 1 as a flashback in episode like 3. Uh
That was so weird.
yeah, it's so weird. I felt the same thing rewatching it for the first time in a long time. One thing I love about this opening though, like I'm Luffy, the man who will be king of the pirates, is that it spoils the end of the show. Because it's just all right. So this is Luffy. At the end of this show, he will be king of the pirates. All right, there we go. I know the character. I know what he wants, and he's going to get it. Like the episode told me, he'll get it. It's one
Yeah.
of those things that Oda does that just like completely spoils something super later in One Piece. That I find super hilarious. That the first line of dialogue outside of Gold Roger's speech and the opening is the end of the story. It's oh, okay, he's going to be king of the pirates. That's super cool, and it really lets you know, like, because we don't actually see Luffy in this episode until like 6 minutes in, 6 or 7 minutes. Like he doesn't show
Yeah,
up till like the halfway mark. Which is very funny to me that he gets the opening title and it's bombastic, and then he's not there.
it's
um,
very Luffy.
it is very Luffy for him to show up late to his own debut. Like many a VTuber are prone to do. So to set up the story, we begin on this fancy-looking boat with some very bored guards, who find a barrel floating in the water. They pull it over. There's some really bad dialogue. It's really bad and dated. Hearing them say "bata out" in Japanese really like threw me through a loop. And we actually get our first tease of another important character, an orange-haired lady moving about the ship and dancing. And then pretty quickly we get introduced to a group of pirates who are approaching the ship, and that brings us to um, the introduction of a character named Alvida, who is this monster of a woman. How do you feel about Alvida, Noriko, in this iteration, episode one, Alvida?
Um, she's a pirate that actually does piracy.
Right? Like it's so funny that like we actually get like a real pirate, which we don't get in Romance Dawn, which maybe is part of the reason why they changed it. Because like in Romance Dawn, you're introduced to. We'll cover Romance Dawn in like a little bit when we get to that episode, but the pirates we see in that are pirates, but like not. We don't get to experience them really being pirates doing pirate things. Not like Elvita showing up and being like, all right, get over there, plunder their booty. I'm gonna kick you on that ship, and if you don't move fast enough, I'll kill you myself. And it's just like, all right, this is a crazy lady pirate with a weird hot pink ship. And wow, I don't know how they're shooting the cannons straight ahead from the side of their ship. This doesn't make any sense, but okay. uh, the cannons in One Piece always blow my mind because they just never make any sense.
Yeah.
Um, I think there was a few other things I just sort of noticed about these scenes with Kobe. It's so good at cementing Kobe's
Mm-hmm.
character, but also Alvida's whole intro really sets up, in my opinion, that One Piece is at its heart at this point in the story a comedy. Because like her first like lines are, who is the most beautiful sailor on the sea or whatever, right? Like, mirror mirror, who is the most beautiful maiden in all the land? Like, she is literally doing a parody of a fairy tale, and Kobe is being forced to answer her on under threat of violence. But it's a funny thing because there's this massive frog of a woman, who's ugly inside and out, demanding that she be called the most beautiful person on the ocean. And it's just like really, really funny to me that Oda's like, oh yeah, we're gonna make her do like the whole evil queen, look in the mirror, tell me I'm pretty, rant, uh, which is fantastic. I love it. Um, I love Kobe. I didn't when I first watched One Piece, and I don't know about your opinion of Kobe, but man, I hated him when I was young and first watching One Piece. I sort of reacted to him the way Luffy does, which is just go, man, you suck.
Yeah, same.
But I
But
I did
knowing where he goes,
exactly right. That's something it's this is a beautiful thing about One Piece that we can't quite really share with viewers who have never watched it. But when you rewatch One Piece, it's so much more emotional. Things that never hit me emotionally for on my first few watch throughs of One Piece make me cry now because I'm so invested in these characters. So a character like Kobe, when I first watched him, I was like, man, this guy sucks, Luffy. Like, I mean, yeah, I mean, he's not evil or anything. He's just kind of poopy. But like now I'm like, all right. I mean, Kobe's got like yeah, I'm gonna see. I know the man he's going to grow into over the course of like 6 months. So like, it's very interesting coming back to One Piece and rewatching it. I did write down specifically in the subtitled version. I love when Kobe's like on the ship and he goes down to the kitchen area and he just pokes his head in the door. He's like, "Konnichiwa," just like the softest. Please don't be anyone in here. While this is happening, we do get to see Nami instantly change her clothes. We don't know her name yet, and we won't learn Nami's name until like episode 4 or 5. But she is in every episode, I believe, up until that point. Because she just keeps showing up. We get a small scene of her boarding the pirate ship while they're boarding the party boat, whatever it is. Because it's not a merchant vessel; it's just a bunch of like rich people dancing and drinking wine. And we do get another comedy moment where she nutshots a guy. Where she's like about to steal from them, and a pirate comes out of the door, and she's like, "Hey!" and he's like, "Huh?" and then she kicks him in the nuts, and there's like a loud sound effect and whatnot, and like he gets a little like spinny birds above his head and whatnot, which I found very funny. Which is fantastic. And then we get Luffy's intro. So how do you feel about Luffy's introduction to the story with "I slept great"? I believe being the first line he said. What a good nap, depending on your
It's
translation.
absolute perfection.
It is. It
It
is
just
pretty
tells you
much.
everything you need to know about him.
I think. I think it tells you almost everything you need to know about him, and then the next line he says will tell you the rest. Which is Luffy, to set the scene, was inside that barrel. We saw the watchman pull up onto the boat. Kobe, thinking it was booze, was about to wheel it back to the boat. Some of Velveeta's sailors showed up and are like, haha, let's make it a bit lighter, eh? And Kobe, of course, is like, she'll kill us if we're stealing some of her booze. And they're like, well, we won't say anything or we'll cut ya. He's like, of course not. Don't hurt me, I suck. At which point Luffy breaks out of the barrel, what a great nap, and hits a guy square in the jaw, knocking him flat. And of course, the other two pirates are like, we're under attack, what are you doing? And "I slept great" is a perfect opening line for Luffy, but the next is so good where he looks at the guy he just knocked out and goes, "He'll catch a cold sleeping like that." Like, oh, that's a silly place to sleep, buddy. You should get up. And the two other pirates going, "You did that," and him just going, "I'm hungry." Like he doesn't notice they're there. That whole conversation is like perfect Luffy of, "I have caused mayhem and havoc. I have not noticed it. I think that maybe something's wrong, but I definitely didn't cause it. I should eat something." And that is fantastic. Of course the pirates go to attack Luffy. Kobe like winces and closes his eyes, not wanting to watch this poor kid get gored on swords. To open his eyes and find that the two pirates are knocked the fuck out and are beaten up, and Luffy's just hanging out like, "Hey, y'all are dicks. Piss off." And they grab their unconscious friend and run off to go tell mommy that the bad man from the barrel beat them up. And then we get another fantastic scene where Luffy and Kobe spend a little bit of alone time together, and Kobe basically becomes Oda's exposition dump. Kobe becomes a character who just says things, and he doesn't ever stop doing this, I think, until like episode 800. So, this is like Kobe's role for the next long while of him existing, is just to talk to us a lot. But there is a fantastic, another little bit of Luffy's character, where he calls Kobe dumb and stupid. He says he's because Kobe explains how 2 years ago he wanted to go fishing, so he hopped on a little dinghy near his village, but not knowing that it was being commandeered by the pirates going back to their ship, and just got kidnapped by them 2 years ago and has been suffering constant abuse from them since. At which point Luffy does go, "Oh, you're dumb and stupid." And we've just seen Luffy wake up from his nap, knock 3 men out, and then comment that one of the men he knocked out might catch a cold sleeping where he knocked them out. Luffy is very dumb in a very Luffy way, and it's just very funny to see this character who is such a just ball of chaos calling someone else dumb and stupid in such an offhanded way. I love it. It's another good point of his character where he can really read people, and that is a bunch of foreshadowing that Oda's sort of working in. Uh, he also, I believe, calls him a coward as well when Kobe explains how he couldn't run away at any point. And I do believe Luffy at that point laughs and just says, "Man, I hate you," while he's like eating a bunch of apples, and Kobe's just like, "I mean, that's fair. I'm terrible, but you had to say it." Um, which is very funny to me. And then we get an actually like really good piece of dialogue. Where Kobe is asking Luffy like, what is he doing? Like he's trying to figure out who Luffy is, and Luffy introduces himself as, um, the man who will be king of the pirates. Now, of course, we don't know anything about being the pirate king, but Kobe does, so he freaks out, and we get a really good bit where Luffy smacks Kobe, because he's being hysterical, and Kobe goes, "Why did you hit me?" And Luffy goes, "Because." Like, just because. Shut up. You were annoying me, so I hate you. I think they repeat that bit 2 or 3 times this episode. It's very good. I do get a chuckle out of it every time. But this is like, so we've gotten a lot of Luffy's character already, which is great because again he's being introduced pretty late into this episode. But there's a moment where he sort of like, I think he even takes the hat off and looks at it. I don't remember. Maybe I'm misremembering that. I didn't write out the scene word for word. Um, but there is a moment where he's like, it's not about whether or not I can do it. I'm going to do it because I want it. And it's so good. Even when I was little and watching One Piece for the first time, that I remember that line giving me chills where Luffy's just going, if I die trying to do this, then I die. But I want it, so I'm going to do it. And there's no fear, there's no discussion, there's no debate, there's no worrying about whether or not it's even possible. There's just, I'm going to do it. If I die, well, then I guess I'm going to do as much as I can before that moment. And it's so good. It's so good. Luffy is such a bad influence on people. Because Kobe's like immediately like, oh, holy shit, this like fucking kid is willing to die for this. And I'm too scared to run away from this lady just because I went fishing one day. Like, I suck. Like, Kobe has this moment of, man, imagine what I could do if I wasn't constantly afraid of everything. And I think it's great. Like, that whole scene, I think the conversation with Kobe goes on a little bit too long. Um, but that's just because Kobe is being used to dump exposition, and again, they didn't have a big budget. So there's not a lot of animation. It's just a lot of Kobe talking. um, I think in one of the scenes where Luffy hits Kobe, we don't even get to see it. like they don't animate him hitting him. We just hear the sound effect and then hear Kobe going, "Why did you hit me?" uh, which is very funny to me. But I think this is Oda really showing us a character reacting reasonably, almost, to someone declaring they're going to be king of the pirates. And Luffy's response is to give us this view into his character. I think it's a good view. Like, I think it's a good job. I don't know if you like this little moment with Luffy as much as I do, but it's like one of those things about Luffy's character that I'm like, ah, yes, the goodest boy is here.
I love that scene. I love the whole conversation with Luffy and Kobe.
They
It's
do have a
such good
good,
shit.
they have a good dynamic, which is weird, because like, again, one of Luffy's first line is, "I hate you." but he laughs while he says it. And at no point do you ever feel like Luffy hates Kobe. He just kind of hates what Kobe represents. Like it's just this weird thing of
Yeah.
like, I mean, you should be a better person. You should stand up for yourself more. And like, I mean, you might die, but I mean, Jesus, it has to be better than what you're doing. And it's just like, I mean, harsh, but fair. Um, but no, it's really good. I like Kobe and Luffy's relationship through this story a lot. I don't love that Kobe is used for exposition in these first like 3 or 4 episodes. Because again, it makes him way too wordy. And like again, the exposition is for us, the viewer.
Hmm.
Because Luffy's not paying attention to this idiot. Like, like that's why he hits him. It's because he's just making a lot of noise and he's trying to eat. Luffy isn't listening to Kobe. He just wants him to stop making so much panicky noise. Um, which Luffy will be less subtle about some other times when he's not listening to people, which I also find very funny. Um, but like it's such a shonen battle. Like, if I die fighting for the thing I want, then that's fine because at least then I lived my life knowing I tried and I gave it everything. And I tear up a little just saying that. Like in a world of people being too afraid to start things or take risks or just do things, right? Like
Hmm.
I'm guilty of it. When I moved to Japan, there was a restaurant not too far from my house, and I didn't go to it for like 4 months because I was just scared. I was like, I'll go in there. It's gonna be super like compact. It's gonna be Japanese. Everything's gonna be in Japanese. It's not like a big chain restaurant where I can just order like something I'd get in the West. Like it will be difficult, and I was scared to put myself through that and like hate it or just like have a bad time. I finally went to that restaurant and now they're like family to me. The owner of that restaurant gives me drives places when I need to leave to go home. Like we're tight. And it's just that moment of I had that moment where I was just standing there one night like, man, I wasted 4 months not enjoying this thing because I was being Kobe. Like I had that moment of self-realization like, fuck, I was Kobe, not Luffy for like 4 months. Oh, what am I doing with my life? And it's just sometimes you're everyone's a little Kobe, but we should all try to be a little more Luffy, not too much, just a little more.
Yeah.
Uh there's not too much left to this episode. We get a bit of a fight scene and we get the introduction to devil fruits, which again
Yeah.
we don't get to the end of the first episode, which is weird because again in Romance Dawn we get introduced to the devil fruit like right away, like instantly.
Hmm.
So Luffy is a rubber person. He ate the gum gum fruit. Yo ho ho, he took a bite of gum gum, to quote the Four Kids rap. Um, he appears
Wait,
to be
what?
made of rubber. Do you know the Four
What's that
Kids
line
rap?
from the rap?
He,
I
he
heard it
goes,
like one time.
yo ho ho, he took a bite of gum gum. That's how that goes. He's made of rubber. How did that happen? Yo ho ho, he took a bite of gum gum. Um, I hate that that is burned into my brain forever. Uh, but yes, Luffy is a man made of rubber. We get introduced to this concept of devil fruits, mystical, magical fruits that, if you eat them, give you supernatural powers. We don't get a ton of detail. In fact, we learn that in this part of the world, they're sort of considered a myth, and people don't even think they're real, which I've always found super dumb because of how prevalent they are in the rest of the world. And
Hmm.
Oda does backpedal on that later, and I'll bring it up if I remember in the episodes where he starts backpedaling on that a little bit. But he basically explains that this ocean where Luffy is like the most isolated and the weakest ocean in the whole planet. Where basically it has the least population and the people there are the weakest in the world. So basically They just don't have a lot of strong people with devil fruits and whatnot running around. Though in this arc, I think we run into 3 devil fruit users, excluding
Mm,
filler episodes. I think.
yeah, it's
Um,
free.
yeah. But if we include filler, then they run into like 6 or something. In East Blue. But yes, we get introduced to a devil fruit. Uh, Also, I wrote this down in my notes. Luffy is fucking strong. Like, I know it's a comedy manga, but like at the start of this fight, Luffy picks up a man by the head and throws him with enough force to knock like 5 other men over. Like, one-handed grabs a grown adult by the head and throws him like a sack of potatoes. And I was like, that dude weighs like maybe 120 kilo. Like, holy shit. Like, this scrawny little team. Like, I know Luffy is strong. We're about to see him punch Alvida into the sun like a cannon. But, like, the fact that he one-handed lifts an entire grown man up and throws him into a horde of other men like a weapon, I just had this moment where I was watching when I went, what the fuck? Yeah. So Luffy's strong. That'll
He
be a
very
running theme.
strong.
Yeah, that'll be a running theme throughout most of the series, but like, man, sometimes he does something and it's just like, oh yeah, he just threw a man with one hand by the head. But yeah, that is basically uh most of episode 1. I think there was only one other point I wanted to make. Uh so Luffy quickly dispatches Alvida's crew. We learn a little bit of the devil fruits. He one punches Alvida with the first introduction to the Gum Gum pistol, where he throws his arm back with so much force that it goes flying, and then it uses the ricocheting rubber elastic kinetic build-up to really punch a lady. Luffy is a unisex avenger of justice, as he smacks Alvida straight in the gut. We also find out that Luffy is like immune to blunt weapons because Alvida like clubs him in the brain and he just doesn't care. Which is something that comes up a lot, especially in early One Piece. That like Luffy is just he can't feel things, which is weird to say the way I said it. But basically, if something is blunt, it just sort of bounces off of him because he's made of rubber. Um, and then at the end of the episode, Luffy and Kobe jump in a dinghy and try to sail away as the Navy shows up to save the party boat. Nami, the red-headed thief, also scampers with all of Avita's treasure in a different dinghy, and we get like this beautiful slow motion scene of Luffy and Nami's eyes meeting as they both hit the like as his dinghy hits the water, and it's just like this epic foreshadowing, like she's not in the opening theme song. um, and then they take off, and as they're sailing away, we get a scene right at the end of the episode where Luffy asks Kobe about a character that Alvida brought up earlier named Zoro. And we do get a cut to a character shrouded in shadow, crucified to a post, and there is this absolutely disgustingly sick guitar riff. And it's just like, and I'm like, holy shit! It just went so hard. The
Just
guitar
why?
the guitar goes so hard when they just show this like teaser of Zoro, and then the episode cuts to be continued, and then Memory starts playing, and I'm like, you just hit me with like a rock, like the rockiest music possible, and then threw me into this soft ballad. Like, what are you doing? The tonal whiplash. And that's episode 1. Do you have anything you'd like to add to it? Anything else, or
Mm,
anything I missed, or any comments?
not really.
Yeah, I'm very thorough, aren't I?
Yeah.
That'll probably get less as we go on. The first 2 episodes took about 1 whole page in my notebook each, but then the later episodes start taking less. And I don't know if that's just because less happens or if I was just taking worse notes. But yeah, that is episode 1 of One Piece. Our pilot. I'm Luffy, the man who will be king of the pirates. So, let's move on to our second episode then. That's pretty sick. That was alright.
Yeah.
That was a good episode. I still think I prefer Romance Dawn starting the show.
Oh,
Um,
definitely.
yeah. For the listeners, basically, um, the first chapter of One Piece is called Romance Dawn. I think the whole first volume is called Romance Dawn, actually.
Yeah.
Um, which I don't know if you know this, Noriko, but I have a degree in English literature, and Romance Dawn is an extremely important title. Um, and even from that title, even more so than I'm Luffy, the man who'll be king of the pirates, sets up the story. So Oda, and this is something I've actually discussed in like university papers with professors and whatnot. Um, Oda is a genius. He doesn't always feel like it when we get to like some parts with like Nami and how like some characters change and their bodies change and whatnot. Because like Oda sometimes is just like a horny boy and sometimes he's a genius and he oscillates between the two a lot. Um, but romance and the phrase romance dawn literally refers to the romantic quest, which in literature refers to the quest for the Holy Grail. It's
Hmm.
like 18th century like sort of British literature, the holy knight seeking an artifact to save their king or something like that. This idea of searching for something that might not even exist just because searching for it is worth the risk of it not existing. And it's a whole thing. And in like the literature like society of people who specifically care about that kind of thing, it is a big thing. Um Anytime I brought this to one of my professors and they're like, "Oh, you're talking about anime again?" I'm like, "Yeah, the first chapter is called Romance Dawn." And they're like, "Wait, what? Why?" And I'm like, "Cuz it's like a 20-year romantic quest story." And they're like, I'm intrigued. I'm like, all right, let's get you hooked on anime. Um, so yeah, that's Romance Dawn. Basically, that first chapter in some versions of the anime becomes the first episode, I believe. But when it came time for like the Funimation and the toy animation, the main proper animation, especially in the West, they changed the order of the episodes around, and so that the chapter Romance Dawn sort of becomes like episode 4, I want to say. Um,
Yeah, it's episode
I'll,
4.
yeah, it becomes episode 4. It becomes a flashback story instead of us starting in the past and then jumping to the future with Luffy in the barrel. We instead start with the barrel, go for 3 episodes, and then see how Luffy got to the barrel. It's weird. The episode we get for episode 1 is still perfectly fine, but Romance Dawn probably would have been better.
Hmm.
But now we get episode 2, which I think was called Enter Swordman Zoro. I think.
Yeah.
Either that's my pen scritch note or the actual episode title.
I
And
don't
we,
remember episode titles.
yeah, I wrote some of them down verbatim, and then I wrote some of them down just like on my own, like an idiot. So we actually open with another very important bit of character information for Luffy, which I love. We open with Luffy sitting back in his little dinghy while Kobe is running the ship and going, how can you expect to be a pirate when you don't know how to sail a ship? And Luffy going, everything works out okay. Um, which is like a whole lot of red flags. But it's a huge part of Luffy's character that becomes extremely important by the end of this arc, that he has a very particular set of skills. He's Liam Neeson. Um, Luffy's and he literally delivers an amazing line later, and I don't want to spoil it because I always like get the chills. when it happens, so I want to save it for then. But Luffy has a very specific set of skills, and Luffy is super self-aware of where he's weak, which is very cool for a protagonist in a story. Because normally our protagonists like kind of think they can do everything on their own and be like lone wolves. Not Luffy. Luffy's like, I kind of fucking suck at a lot of things. I'm gonna need help. And one of the things he needs help with is navigation, because he doesn't know shit about shit.
Yes.
Yeah, Luffy is basically a child just floating in the breeze, and it's a whole goddamn thing. Now, while they're sailing into this island where Zoro has been held captive by the Marines, I believe we get another one of those bits where Kobe goes on a rant and Luffy smacks him on the head. Um, but Luffy and them are walking through the island trying to get up to the Marine base. Luffy brings up the name Zoro, and everyone reacts like he said a taboo word. And then Kobe, like everyone, sort of gets back, and then Kobe brings up the name Captain Morgan, and everyone reacts the same way. And this is really good. I love the way Oda makes a connection between these two things, because Zoro is described to us by Kobe as like some demon, like a monster. And the captain of the Marines at this base gets the exact same reaction. Like, they probably used the same animation. Like, they probably just replayed the animation 100% as Zoro does. Which I think is, like, really cool of Oda, because this is something that movies do and, like, filmographers do and whatnot, where they show you something instead of telling you something. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because this is showing us that Morgan is feared here. He is as bad as Zoro. People don't speak his name because they are scared of him, which is super cool because Oda sets that up for us in a way that we might not even notice it immediately. Um, but he's really setting up uh, the Navy as being a big bad, and we know they're Luffy's enemy because he's a pirate. But this Morgan character seems to be an enemy of the people, and I think Oda sets this up really well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like one of those little things that like the nerd in me is like, oh, that you know what? I thought that was just played for a laugh as a kid, but like that's actually just really smart. It's one of those moments where
Yeah.
Oda's being a genius again, and I just think he's being funny. But yeah, and then we meet Zoro for the first time, crucified to a post and starving. Luffy and Kobe are being weird little peeping toms watching him. And then a little girl shows up and runs into the like execution field to give Zoro some little rice balls. Were these rice balls in the German dub?
I don't remember.
Because I know in the
I
Four
didn't watch
Kids
a
one, I
German
think
dub in
she.
like 15 years.
That's fair. I think in the Four Kids one, she called them like donuts or some shit. Like they
But are
it
they
was
jelly
if
filled?
yeah, like jelly donuts. I think it's just one of those things that like Four Kids just like whenever there was like an onigiri in one of their anime, they called them like a jelly donut. I don't know why. They're so dumb. But she comes in to give him these, and then we get an introduction to like the secondary antagonist of this little 2 episode arc, Hell Meppo. um, who is a fucking character. I don't know, Noriko, if you've ever watched Nun Piece, which
No.
is it's a comedy abridged series about One Piece. I don't know if it ever made it past like episode like 5, but their characterization of Helmeppo is so good. uh and when he enters here and does his whole little bit where he like throws the girls rice balls to the ground and stomps on them, it plays the song Purple Dinosaur, like or something like open the door, get on the floor, everybody do the dinosaur. It's really fucking funny, and I can't watch this scene without thinking about that abridged series. So it's this really brutal thing of Helmeppo like throwing her food to the ground because apparently she made it with sugar instead of salt, because she thought it being sweet would be better, because she's a kid. So he stomps that into the ground and then orders one of the guards to fucking throw her over the wall. And he's like, "What? She's a kid." He's like, "Get rid of her. I don't care. Or do you want my daddy to come hit you?" Because Helmeppo is Morgan's son, and he is that kind of character. And we get another good little Oda moment of seeing that the Marines here aren't corrupt necessarily. They just can't. They're cowards, basically. They're Kobe's, all of them. Because when he reaches down to grab the girl, he's like, "Hey, curl yourself in a ball, please. Like, I'm gonna try and not hurt you doing this." And then he biffs that girl like 80 feet over a wall. Like, that guy has an arm, man. People in One Piece are really strong. Luffy catches the girl so she doesn't get hurt with his stringy, rubbery body. Um, and then she goes off on her own. Helmeppo leaves with his little guards, and then Luffy pops up in front of Zoro, like full on just appears there. And he's sort of like staring him down. And we get like a really beautiful moment with Zoro, where he asks Luffy to feed him her rice balls. Which Luffy says at this point is like more of a mud ball than a rice ball because they've just been trampled into the dirt. And Zoro's not having it. He's just like, just feed them to me. And he eats it, coughs a bunch because he just ate a bunch of dirt. And Luffy's like, "See, I told you that wasn't a really good idea." And Zoro just says like, "Go show Sama deshita, like thank you for the food. Please let her know it was delicious, and I ate all of them." And there's this moment where I go soft for Zoro. Like, my eyes well up and my heart beats, and I'm like, "Oh, baby boy, I love you." And there's a moment where Luffy goes soft for Zoro. And he's like, "Oh, okay, this guy's good. I'm gonna make him a pirate." um, how do you like this moment, Noriko? This little bit of Zoro's personality that we see here.
Zoro is such a good boy.
See, I love this moment, but it makes me a little sad because later in the show, I think we get to see this side of Zoro so much less.
Yeah,
Like he sort of becomes, I don't know if you're familiar with this term, flanderized.
yeah,
Yeah, where basically Zoro picks up like three traits over the course of the show, and those become his traits, and that they are his character, and he can't really do things that aren't in those traits. I sometimes forget how fucking soft and like good-natured early Zoro is, especially with
mm,
kids and people who don't know better. Like,
yeah.
I mean, he'll cut a fool down, but he's not a bad person. And this scene is so good, so good. Um, and I love it. There was some weird audio during this scene as well, with the music when
Mm-hmm.
like Luffy is watching him eat or whatnot, and Luffy like realizes like, "Oh, this is my boy. I'm gonna take. This is my boy. I have staked my claim on him." Um, there's
Only
there's like
Luffy would
real.
think of making a pirate hunter a pirate.
Well, as we find out from Zoro, he never really set out to hunt pirates. He just got lost and needed money
Yeah.
and was strong enough to beat people with bounties, which is very much in Zoro's character for the whole rest of the show.
Mm-hmm.
So directly after this, Luffy is chatting with the little girl. Apparently, her mother runs a restaurant. A lot of single mothers run restaurants in the One Piece universe, because Moriko is the same way back in Luffy's village.
Yeah.
I've just noticed that. A lot of single mothers out here running restaurants. And he learns why Zoro was imprisoned. That basically Helmeppo had these like wild rabid dogs he would keep as pets, and he would just use them to terrorize the village. Zoro was in here eating one time, and the dog snarled at him, so he murdered the dog. I think in the manga he just straight up kills one of them. I don't know in the anime. Like I think in the anime he cuts it and the dog just looks hurt. I think in the manga he just kills one of them.
Yep.
uh, which is great because that's Zoro. That's very Zoro. Because it's a dog. It's not a person. It doesn't matter. And Helmeppo doesn't just threaten him, but threatens the kid. Because Zoro sort of defended the kid who was trying to protect like her mother's bar, like because the dogs were scaring their customers, and she was trying to like shoo the dog away. Um, and Luffy's like, now I'm doubly soft for this kind-hearted bastard. And basically Helmeppo threatened the family if Zoro didn't turn himself in, and made a deal with Zoro that if Zoro went 1 month without food, crucified to a pole, um, he'd forgive him for killing his dog and let him go scot-free. And Zoro's like, I can go without food for a month. I'm Zoro. I'm a badass. He cannot go a month without food and is dying. um, but we learn the how and the why he's crucified there. And then Helmeppo shows up and begins laughing about how they're going to execute Zoro tomorrow and had no intentions of following through uh, his word with Zoro. He's not going to keep that promise. And how does Luffy react to this, Noriko?
By being fucking based and punching him.
he beats the shit out of that boy. he pushed the Luffy button. You shouldn't have done that.
Do
Luffy
never
just
push the Luffy button.
Luffy unloads on him, and Helmeppo's like, my own father never even hit me. I'm gonna get my father on you. And Luffy's response is so good. It's like, fight your own battles, you piece of shit. Come at me. And Helmeppo runs off. And then we get our introduction to Morgan with the declaration, I am great. He screams it to his men as they're lifting a statue of himself onto the
Not
roof
just
of
a
the building.
statue, a T-posing statue.
Yeah, well, again, this was the 90s. T-posing really wasn't a thing yet. Um,
But it is now.
um, but we do get our introduction to Morgan, who, in my opinion, is like kind of a tragic figure in One Piece, as we'll find out around episode, I want to say 10 or 12. Uh, there's a reason Morgan is the way he is, and I don't think he was always like this. But basically, this extremely cruel man who has an axe for a hand is having his crew raise a massive statue of himself on top of the marine base. We cut back to Zoro, who is starving to death, and we get our first visions of Kuina, um, Zoro's childhood friend, and the moment of their promise, or sort of him thinking about the promise he made to her. Which introduces two big motifs of Zoro's character: his promise to Kuina being a driving part of his character, and just promises in general is sort of a big thing in One Piece, as we'll find out with Luffy in the episode Romance Dawn in 2 episodes. But it's also a trend of Zoro being extremely close to death and having visions, which you wouldn't think is a running trend, but I can think of maybe like 8 times it's happened in One Piece. Like, our boy Zoro gets very close to death a lot of the time, and when he does, he starts seeing shit a lot. Like, he starts tripping balls on death. He's kind of like a weird Saiyan. In that every time you almost kill Zoro, he gets stronger and then passes out. um, and we do get that the start of Zoro's death motif here as he's starving. Um, Luffy shows back up, interrupts Zoro's vision, like snaps him out of it. And we have, more of Luffy and Zoro's relationship, which is fantastic, which is basically Luffy going, "You're going to be on my crew," and Zoro going, "Stop deciding things on your own," and Luffy ignoring him. Which will become their entire relationship for the rest of the series.
It's just
Uh,
Luffy being Luffy.
exactly. It's very much Luffy's whole interaction with his entire crew of just being, we're gonna do this, and the crew going, no, that's a bad idea, and Luffy has already started doing it, which is great. So Luffy jumps up to the top, um, of the statue. While this is happening, before he jumps up, we see more with Helmeppo, where he shows up and tells his daddy that he got hit. Um, and like basically ordering Morgan to go kill Luffy. To which Morgan fucking smacks him and says, "You're not great. I'm great. You're just basking in my shadow for as long as I deem to let you, you piece of shit. The only reason I never hit you is because you're a garbage son not even worth hitting." Which is, a perfectly reasonable thing for a father to do at work to his son, I
Oh
guess.
yeah, totally.
And then ordering the death of the little girl for disobeying his orders. Because he says, "You took care of the girl, right?" And Helmeppo's like, "Yeah, we had her thrown out." He's like, "You had her killed, right?" And Helmeppo goes, "No, she's 8. We had her thrown out." And he's like, "Well," turn to one of the sailors, "go kill her, because she did something I didn't like." So we don't like Morgan, at all. Luffy shows up, overshoots the roof, grabs a hold of the statue, which sets it unbalanced, so the people trying to lift it up lose their grip. It cracks against the top of the building and ends up breaking in half. Morgan loses his shit. Earlier, we see him like kill a man because he accidentally scraped the hand of it against part of the building. Because Morgan said they have to treat that statue as if it was himself, and Luffy just broke it in half. If that's not epic foreshadowing, I don't know what is. Um, and this is actually a really fun moment for me. I don't know if you caught this, Noriko, but this is the first time someone sees Luffy and calls him Straw Hat.
Yes.
Morgan, we get that deep-throated Morgan Mugiwara the first time, and I love it. When I heard it, I was like, "Oh, this is." I started writing it down and drew a little Straw Hat. I'm like, "This is the first time someone just in a deep voice yelled Mugiwara in frustration. This is fantastic." Um, while this is happening, Kobe shows up down below to help Zoro. Um, and Zoro's like, "What are you doing?" And Kobe explains how they were going to execute him tomorrow. They're never going to follow their promise. Luffy heard this and was furious and beat the shit out of Helmeppo. And Zoro's like, "Oh, shit, that guy's actually kind of cool. Fuck." um, and the episode ends with Luffy using a technique he'll use later in the show. Uh, but he doesn't name it this time. He does name it later. The Gum Gum Human Shield. Where he grabs Helmeppo and uses it as a human shield. He uses this ability later with Buggy. Maybe twice. I don't remember. He uses it with Buggy at least once. Oh, excuse me. Which is fantastic. And that's the episode. Luffy is attempting to get Zoro's swords, while Kobe is attempting to free Zoro. Um, Morgan notices that someone is down in the field attempting to free Zoro, and him and his troops move out to get Kobe. And the episode ends with like this really big cliffhanger, and then once again, Memories kicks up and sucks all the energy out of the room. And that's episode 2.
Okay. Good episode.
It was a good episode. I'd agree. The animation was definitely showing its how much it sucks. There's a lot of scenes here where there's like very little even background animation, and it's just like white fade around everything.
Yeah.
Um, Especially with Luffy and Zoro, there's a lot of just them like in white space talking. Um, because they didn't want to keep animating the building behind Zoro, like they didn't want to do a background. But it's a pretty good episode. Do you have like a favorite moment in it or anything you want to mention?
Um, every time somebody punched her metal.
Yeah, it's a good thing. And thankfully, Oda likes to use these people a lot, so we're still stuck with him as a character.
Yeah.
Though he gets punched
Also, I noticed
significantly
a
less.
detail when watching the episode. I noticed something.
Oh, what?
Morgan's chin. It says movie on it, and that's German for seagull, and the symbol of the navy is a seagull, and that's pretty funny. Okay, sorry, I talked into you. Yeah. Um, Bellamy.
Oh, your favorite character is Bellamy. Hold up, my audio
Yes.
stopped recording there for a second. Warp. Oh shit.
Oh no.
Yeah, I started recording again. I don't know how. I'm gonna make sure I don't hit that button again. Bellamy. Bellamy's your favorite. Well, I don't know how much of my audio got missed. Uh, rip. Hopefully it's not.
I'm recording
Hopefully
your
it's.
audio too, so
Oh,
it's no
thank God.
problem.
Thank God. Uh, thank you. Bellamy. That's very interesting. I like that. My favorite is Crocodile.
Nice.
Yeah, and
I like
I've
Croco Boy.
oh Croco Boy, who I'm still convinced at one point was Croco Girl, but we'll get to that later when we see
Oh, I
Crocodile
hope
for the
so.
second time. Oh, I want art of that so much, but like I also don't because clearly it would make Crocodile uncomfortable, and I'm not cool with that because that's like as someone who can respect trans people, like I don't want to like find images of pre-op Crocodile, but like as a horny person, I really want to see it. Um, But we'll talk about
Exactly.
Crocodile and that whole thing around episode like 320 or some shit. So we got a while. Um,
Yeah.
so episode 3. I don't have the name of that written down. Um, but basically, we begin right away. Luffy finding Helmeppo's room, and finding 3 swords, but not knowing which one of them is Zoro's. And Helmeppo has passed the fuck out from being used as a human shield and dragged all the way through the Navy base. So Luffy just goes to grab all 3, going Zoro can sort it out. He then sees from the window that Morgan has a firing squad on Kobe and Zoro, and they're about to kill them. So Luffy jumps out the window and lands in front of the pair of them as they're being shot, and all of the bullets hit into Luffy and stretch his skin back, and we get that very classic pose of Luffy going spread eagle and bouncing the bullets back. Cheering loudly that doesn't work on him. Which has now informed Morgan for sure that Luffy has a devil fruit. I guess he just assumed he was some crazy athlete before that with all the stretchy arm shit and the rocket. Uh, Sometimes characters don't seem to notice when Luffy is doing his rubber stick until he does the rubber stick to them, and I don't know why. But it is a great moment. And then like they're reeling at the fact that their bullets won't work on him, and he turns around to help Zoro. And he's like, "I found these swords. Which one is yours?" And Zoro's like, "I use all of them. I use Santoryu, 3 sword style." And Luffy's like, "Ah, neat. Let's try and get your ropes untied." And we find out that Luffy can't even undo a knot, which is very funny. But before that, and I wrote the timestamp for this because I'm super cool. At 4 minutes and 4 seconds, Zoro says to Luffy after Luffy blocks the bullets and like gets shot up and acts like it's nothing. Zoro, and then it also just has Zoro's swords, which Zoro was like, "Oh shit, he actually got my swords like he said he would." And he just blocked all these bullets. Zoro says, "What are you, the devil's son?" Which fuck you, Oda, for foreshadowing. Like when I rewatched this and saw that line, I paused it and went, "Oh my god, Oda, you bastard!" Because this is something that will become incredibly relevant, like 270 episodes from now, and gets teased again later at around episode 60. But fuck me, man, Zoro no scopes that shit like a boss. Oh, I was so pissed. Oh, I was just like so upset that Zoro said that, and I'm like, oh my god, Oda told us, Oda told us Luffy's dad was the devil, like fucking episode goddamn 3, man. Like it wasn't even shouldn't even been a surprise when we found out about it. God damn it. I don't know if you caught that line, but I did, and it fucking blew me away. Oh my god.
I got more of it as son of the devil, as in his connection to devil fruit, because he had the devil fruit,
But
which
as
also
we
works.
know, Luffy's father is literally referred to as the devil by the government
Yeah,
and whatnot.
it works for both.
Yeah, it's crazy foreshadowing. We get a little bit more devil lore, devil fruit lore from Morgan this time, which I found super interesting this time, because he brings up specifically two abilities. Do you remember them? You might not. It's a really small
No,
detail.
but I wrote something else about this.
Oh,
But go
oh,
on.
oh. Okay, I want to know your thing too. He brings up two devil fruits. One that might even give you the ability to breathe fire, and one the ability to create tsunamis, which are Ace and Whitebeard's devil fruits. And I just paused the video again and went, "What the fuck?" He specifically just called out like not only two extremely important characters' abilities, but damn it, Oda. I was like, son of a bitch. How did I never catch that? Because it's such an easy scene to forget. But like he literally brings up as an example to his men of devil fruits Ace and Whitebeard's fruits. And I was blown away when I saw that. I was like, holy shit. What did you see here? Because I didn't see it if it was not one of those two things.
Just something that is Morgan saying that devil fruits are rumored. But shouldn't
Yeah.
he, as a Navy captain, know about at least the admirals?
Well, see, that's the thing. I think they're just idiots. Like, it's one of those things where I think, again, Oda backpedals on this a little bit later,
Mm-hmm.
and we can talk about it because it's super small. But basically, I think the Navy is super compartmentalized. Like, why would an admiral ever come to the East Blue? And the way they treat captains in the East Blue, I think the highest rank military officer in the East Blue for the Navy is captain. Occasionally, Vice Admiral Garp shows up, and we will find out more about why later, but Garp doesn't use devil fruits. Neither does anyone on his crew, to my knowledge. The only naval officer we see with a devil fruit in all of East Blue is Smoker, who is very specifically in a set place, doesn't leave that place, and is the kind of Navy who skips check ins, right? Like, he's the sort of person who doesn't like authority, won't come to staff meetings, right? So, I think there's just a good chance that a lot of these fuckers just don't know. And it's really stupid. But, like,
But the
inform.
newspaper exists.
But that's the thing, right? But, like, the Navy controls the newspaper, right? Like, it's one of these super weird things where the East Blue is so isolated from everything else that I understand some people not knowing about devil fruits. I think he should know about them. Like and it's something that Oda changes a bit later because basically I believe I don't have my sources, so forgive me. But I believe Oda originally when the story was supposed to end very early on before it became what it is was only going to have a few devil fruits in the show. They were supposed to be way more rare than they ended up being.
Mm-hmm.
So it basically became this thing where they were going to be rumored to exist everywheres, and then the show blew up, and they're like, "Hey, make this last like 40 years." And he went, "All right, shit, I kind of have to change some things that are gonna make a lot of people in the East Blue sound real stupid."
I think the East Blue isn't weak. They're just uneducated.
It's ignorance. That's what it is. Um, Yeah, that is a weird thing about the East Blue and the characters in the East Blue. We do lose that pretty quickly, because the next few villains we meet know about Devil Fruits because we run into Buggy, and then we run into Creek, and then we run into Arlong, all of which have had interactions with Devil Fruit users before. They're much more typical reactions to Devil Fruits. But yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
just a really dumb thing. I don't even think at this point we've learned that he can't swim yet. Like
Yes, we did.
I don't think we learn that Luffy can't swim until next episode, which is still super funny to me because they skipped Romance Dawn episode 1. We don't know that there's a penalty to this superpower. uh we just keep hearing people going about these rumored abilities that some people have. Um so Luffy's fumbling to try and get Zoro free. Luffy's getting charged by a bunch of men he could easily knock out on his own. Um Zoro asks him to just pass him his swords. He does. Off screen, Zoro breaks free instantaneously from his arms being bound somehow. Uh, and uses his swords to block a bunch of the men. There's this really cool, badass scene where he has all the Marines like frozen in a lock with his swords, which, if you look at it, doesn't make any sense. Like some of them are just sort of like holding their swords in the air. I don't think he's blocking them at all. But he does have a moment where it says to them like move and you're dead, and we get to see the Marines like he's gonna kill us. um and then Luffy's like duck, and then he uses his gum gum whip, sends them all blasting, and Zoro is once again like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And Luffy's like, I'm a rubber boy. And Zoro's like, oh my god, this this is my captain, this is what I've chosen to do. uh During this, we did get a moment where Zoro declared that he will join Luffy because if he's fighting the Marines, he's going to be an outlaw anyways. However, if Luffy gets in the way of Zoro's plan, uh, they're going to have words. And his plan is that he promised someone he would become the world's greatest swordsman. To which we have an absolute killer line from Luffy where he says, the greatest swordsman in the world. Well, the king of the pirates could have no less than that, right? So that sounds about right for me. And it's just like, fucking, alright, king, go off. Like, alright. Oh, that's so good. I love that reaction. Um, it's great. I think we get to see Luffy beat the crap out of Morgan a little bit here, which catches Morgan off guard. We see Morgan like tear up a part of the ground, like brutally with his axe. Like it causes like a small
Mm-hmm.
earthquake, which is very funny to me. Uh, Luffy starts beating the shit out of Morgan like it's nothing, because again, Luffy's incredibly strong. At which point, Helmeppo takes Kobe hostage, uh, by gunpoint. Uh, but his hand is shaking. It doesn't look like he knows how to hold the gun right. But Luffy isn't about to let Kobe die, so Luffy turns around and starts walking towards Helmeppo, so he can throw a Gum Gum pistol at him. And we get this moment where Helmeppo is like telling him not to move, and he's just walking towards him, knowing Helmeppo won't pull the shot. And then we see Morgan appear behind Luffy, and this is like really a beautiful moment between Luffy and Zoro because already in their relationship, Luffy has zero doubt that Zoro has his back and is strong enough to take like Morgan out in a single hit. Luffy does not give a shit that Morgan is behind him because he knows Zoro is in front of him and Zoro has his back. So they have this beautiful like 1-2 punch. Luffy punches Helmeppo out, saving Kobe. Zoro cuts down Morgan. I originally thought he died. Like I thought Zoro just killed the man. Uh when I first read this, until seeing the filler later with Morgan come up, which I think was a cover story in the manga. But I thought Zoro just killed Morgan in this. I was like, oh, I guess Morgan's dead. Good job, Zoro. Uh, and the two of them sort of like stand back to back and are like, all right, that's dealt with. Time to deal with the rest of these fuckers. At which point the Marines all throw down their arms and cheer, because ding dong, the bastards defeated.
Yay.
Yep, they did it. It's a really cool moment. How do you like Luffy and Zoro's first little fight together? And
They're just a
just
perfect team already.
yeah, they kind of bond real fast. Luffy makes family quick. I think
Yeah.
I specifically have them written down here as promise bros on my page, because
I
they're
have
the
it
two.
written down as banger team.
They are the two members of the crew who have their primary motivations are promises to other people.
Mm-hmm.
Because like Nami's whole thing is a thing with herself. Sanji's whole thing is sort of a thing with Zeph, but it's a thing with himself. Chopper's thing is kind of a promise made to Hirouk, but it's also just something he wanted to do. Robin's whole thing is her whole fucking thing. Frankie's whole thing is his thing. Jinbei's whole thing is his thing. Brooke's whole thing is a promise. As well, which is kind of cool. I love that a lot of the Straw Hats are just motivated by just keeping their word. Um,
Hmm.
and I think it's just a really cool moment because Zoro doesn't know about Luffy's promise yet. He finds that out next episode, and we do see him go, "Oh, I've made the right choice. This is someone who not only seems to be a genuinely good person, but we're like very similar flavors of idiot," which I love. While this is happening, though, who do we see at the Navy base? Do you remember? Who's just there still?
Yeah, Nami is just doing Nami things.
That Nami is doing Nami things, and we get our introduction to
The
Buggy.
Buggy!
That's right. Everyone's favorite fan, like fan number one favorite character, Buggy.
Buggy
Apparently,
is great.
I do unironically love Buggy, and I can't wait to talk about him, especially in the later episodes, especially with him and Mister Three, because they are my favorite gay couple in One
Yes.
Piece. And just the fact that
They're so great together.
it's so good. The fact that they refer to each other as Aibo, as partner, it always gets to me. Because it's so gay. And I live for that shit. I just live for it. So apparently, the Marines here had some sort of chart of an early part of the Grand Line. Nami was gonna steal it to sell it to make a ton of money because she's Nami. But it looks like it had already been stolen flashily by Buggy the Clown. Dun dun dun. And we'll learn more about Buggy next episode. But more so on the fifth episode. A little bit more happens in this episode that's very good. Zoro passes the fuck out after taking out Morgan because again he hasn't eaten for 3 weeks except for some muddy rice balls. So the next scene we see Luffy, Kobe, and Zoro are in the restaurant with the little girl and her mother, and they are just eating. And Luffy is eating as much as Zoro, who hasn't eaten in 3 weeks. Uh, and we had some funny lines last episode with Luffy like going, "Wow, I couldn't go 3 weeks without food. I'd die." And Zoro going, "Well, I'm made of tougher stuff than you are. I have more willpower than you do." And I'm like, no, I think Luffy would just physically die. Like I don't think it's a willpower thing. I think he would just die. um and we this is possibly one of my favorite parts in like the first 10 episodes of One Piece because like Zoro realizes how much in over his head he is already with just being him and Luffy. And he's like, "All right, where's the rest of your crew?" And he's like, "Nope, just us." And he's like, "What? All right, well, where's your ship?" He's like, "That little dinghy out there." He's like, "Oh my god, what have I done? This is my life now." Um, which is great. It's a very good moment. But then we get probably my favorite moment where the Marines show up and they're like, "Hey, listen, we're super appreciative of you taking out Morgan. He was super corrupt and too strong for any of us to bring down. But now that he's, unconscious, we can chain him up and contact HQ and get him taken care of. But you're still pirates. Like, you have to leave. We don't want to have to fight you because we'll lose, first of all. But also, we can't have you stay here without fighting you because then we'll all get executed for being treasonous bastards. Like, you're putting us in a rough position. Could you please leave?" And Luffy's like, "Well, yeah, we're pirates. Of course we'll leave." Right? It's just like Luffy's like, "Well, yeah, that makes sense. I'm a pirate. You're the Marines. I'll leave. I don't want to fight you. You suck. You're not a threat. You don't have anything I want. I'll just leave." Uh, which is great because they're not. Like Luffy could sink this island if he wanted to at this point. I'm wholly convinced. But we get possibly one of the few moments in One Piece where we get to see that Luffy is really fucking smart. And Luffy is so dumb. Except in the very few fields where he's super intelligent. Um, because Kobe, up until this point, I don't think I've mentioned, but Kobe's dream is to join the Marines so that other people don't have to go through the crap he did for 2 years. To stop bad pirates from hurting innocent people. He wants to get stronger, he wants to join the Marines. But as I mentioned, he's served on a pirate ship for 2 years because he's an idiot. And the Marines don't really take kindly to pirates joining the Marines because that's called spying typically, right? Like um so Zoro and Luffy go to leave, and the Marines look at Kobe and are like, "Hey, aren't you their friend? Like, aren't you leaving with them?" And Kobe has this moment where he's immediately torn. Because on the one hand, he is Luffy's friend, and their friendship is something that he's super. What's the word I'm looking for? He's unsure about. Kobe wants to be Luffy's friend, but Kobe has never had friends, and he doesn't know if he's successfully done a friend yet. There was a scene earlier here where I think he brings up very tentatively that they're friends, and Luffy's like, "Yeah, of course," because then Luffy like, "Yeah, I mean, he'd die for Kobe." But Kobe isn't used to that level of instant attachment. And Luffy, realizing immediately, with that brilliantly sharp mind of his, that is so soft and smooth, he's like, oh, Kobe has been with pirates for 2 months, or 2 years, and came here with me and overthrew Morgan. They're going to think he's a member of the pirates. They're not going to let him join the Marines. I have to make it look like we aren't friends. So Luffy immediately starts prepping to tell this Marine everything about Kobe. The 2 years spent on Alvida's ship, sailing with him, and Kobe's like, Luffy's being his usual stupid self. Kobe doesn't realize what Luffy is doing. Kobe's like, Luffy is too honest, too kind, he's just saying what someone asked for. So Kobe panics and attacks Luffy to get him to stop talking, so he doesn't ruin his chance to join the Navy. And the second Kobe hits him once, Luffy's like, alright, good boy, now I can beat the shit out of you and make it look realistic, because I'm a shitty pirate. And he just starts beating the shit out of Kobe. And I'll admit, it was very cathartic for me. It's like, yeah, hit him, yeah, go punch him once more for me. Right in the kidneys. Come on. Yeah. um, it was fantastic. Eventually
It
the
was
Marines rush forward
amazing.
and pull Luffy off because they're not going to let him just attack someone. And they say like, "All right, we can see he's no friend of yours. Get out of here before you burned off all your good graces from us. You know, attacking this poor kid." And Luffy turns and walks away, and we get to see Luffy smile. Because he did a good job in this little self-knowing way that Luffy sometimes has. And then it hits for Kobe that Luffy made him attack him for Kobe's own benefit. We get it's just such a good moment. I imagine you probably like that moment as much as I do, but maybe for different reasons.
Yes. What do you mean different reasons?
Oh, I like Kobe getting beat up a little bit because I'm a bastard. like
Oh, same.
I like it because it's an amazing good Luffy moment and a great Luffy Kobe moment, but I also just like it because I like seeing Kobe get hit.
Yes, same.
That's good. That's good. It's a great
I just
moment.
wrote down base Luffy punches Kobe.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. He doesn't just punch him. He pins him to the ground and goes off on him.
Yeah.
Of course, holding back, but it's fantastic. Um, and then Luffy and Zoro go to leave because the Marines are like, "Hey, like, listen, you helped us, but we're not gonna let you beat a kid up in front of us. Like, all right, maybe you're not as nice as we thought. Piss off. Like, we're now going to be angry with you and tell you to leave instead of respectful and tell you to leave." Um, Now before this, Kobe did give us some more exposition because again, Kobe is an exposition dump. This is the first time where we learn a bit more about the Grand Line and the Red Line. And we actually get to
Hmm.
see a bit of the map of the One Piece world and how it's four oceans bisected by a fifth ocean and a mountainous continent that splits the world in half. Which is super cool. The One Piece world is super aesthetic. Um,
Hmm.
and this is the first time we actually get to like hear about it from Kobe. Luffy and Zoro get down into their ship and are about to leave. The mother and her daughter are there to say goodbye to them. I don't think they fully picked up on why Luffy beat up Kobe, but they're also not super mad at him, so I don't know, maybe they're smarter than I give them credit for. And then Kobe shows up and salutes Luffy and Zoro. And Zoro makes a line like, "Who ever heard of a Marine saluting some pirates?" and then all the Marines show up and salute the pirates.
That was so
For
wholesome.
it's pretty wholesome. However, as they're sailing away, the Marine just goes, "All right, boys, we just broke naval law, so no food for 3 days." And I'm like, that's kind of like no dinner for 3 days. Sure, no food for 3 days. I don't know if this was worth it, guys. Did we have to show our respect? I wouldn't want to go 3 days without eating. I've done it. It's not fun, man. My head hurts. And then Luffy and Zoro sail off. And that's the episode. Not a lot happens other than the little fight and Luffy beating up Kobe.
Yeah,
It's a good episode though, and it had that really good Luffy Kobe moment, which is fantastic.
and I have another note that's just um remember when the Grand Line was scary?
Yeah. Well, I mean, half of it still is. It's just the half we're in, sort of. But yes,
Yeah.
I the grand because I think the Grand Line is so scary here in the East Blue because again, to them, whoever goes to the Grand Line doesn't come back ever because of the way the world is set up. Like once you're in the Grand Line, you don't get to leave it unless you're a Marine.
Yeah.
Typically, right? Because of the comm belt. Like you can't leave the Grand Line once you're in it. The people in the Grand Line, it's all business. They've lived there all their lives for generations. Because once you're there, you're stuck. Unless you're a Marine or you brave the comm belt, as we'll see a character do at some point. Um, Soon, but not till the end of the Buggy stuff. And the end of the Usopp stuff. Because that's in between that and Krieg. Uh, but yeah, like I think the reason that the Grand Line is so scary here and the characters react this way to it is because like it is a boogeyman, right? Like anyone who has
Mhm.
ever gone up Reverse Mountain has never come back because people don't
Because
come
you
back.
physically can't.
Exactly, right? Except for a few rare instances or the Marines. Which is interesting because we don't know that yet. So to us, it still sounds like a graveyard, but then we get there and it's like, oh, it's just more ocean. It's more crazy, but it's just ocean.
Yeah.
It's just more of that whole the people in the East Blue are severely uneducated. I don't know if Luffy can read. He doesn't know his numbers, as we'll find out much later when he gets a new bounty and thinks it's gone down because he can't count zeros. All right, well that's episode 3. Episode 4, I don't think has a ton in it because it's Romance Dawn. Um, so it does have a
Well, it
lot
starts
in
with
it.
Nami scanning some people.
That's right. My first note is Nami jumps the Bucky Pirates. Um, and it's the first time we see her outsmart someone instead of just hit them. Because every other interaction we've seen of Nami doing something, it's been slapstick comedy, right? It's been kicking a guy in the
Yeah.
nuts. It's been breaking into the safe and finding that Bucky took the thing. This is the first time we ever hear Nami say anything, I think. She might have said something with the Buggy map, like, who's Buggy? Like, what is this? But, this is the first time we hear her talk to someone, and it's the first time we see her outsmart anyone and use her wit to steal, which is super cool. I did write that down. A bit of wind
Yeah.
comes by and takes Luffy's hat as we cut away from Nami and the Buggy Pirates who she left stranded. Um, and then we get this really obnoxious slow motion of the hat sliding up the sail that I've always hated the animation of because it's so slow.
It's way too slow.
Yeah. And we get our introduction to Red Hair Shanks. How do you
I
feel
just
about
wrote down Romance
Shanks?
down. Let's go.
Yeah, we finally get to Romance Dawn.
Yeah.
So
I fucking love Shanks.
this is a flashback to Baby Luffy hanging out with a man who's wearing his hat. The straw hat with red hair, some scars across his eyes. Um, Hanging out in Luffy's village with his pirate crew, and we find out this man is named Shanks. He will be an extremely important character as we find out more about him over the course of this story. Um, I did write down the egregious slow mo, so that we see a bunch of his crew, most of whom are just sort of faceless background characters, but there are some standouts, like Ben Beckham. I forget the name of the chubby guy.
Lucky Roll.
Thank you. I know Ben Beckham. I know Yasop. We meet Yasop, who is a piece of shit. I don't like Yasop.
Absolute shit dad.
Yeah, like the worst father figure in all of One Piece, and that's saying something because like Luffy's dad doesn't even show up. But Luffy's dad was never there, which is significantly less worse than abandoning your family after they've existed, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But we see some good-natured pirates, right? Because like the Shanks are more like how we feel with Luffy, right? Like not Alvida.
Mm-hmm.
They're not terrorizing this town. They're partying. They're drinking. They're charming. The bartender, the lady, and Shanks have like a weird like, is he the father of her baby thing going on? Maybe. Um, that is a whole fan thing, which I love, and I believe in a heartbeat. Um, and
Same.
also we get the introduction of some mountain bandits, which is excellent foreshadowing because we find out that Luffy's island has mountain bandits, because that will become important later. The chat will remember this for later. The mountain bandits show up, bragging about having an 8 million berry bounty. This is also the first time we ever hear about bounties being brought up ever in One Piece. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and our first introduction is a nice wholesome 8 million, which is like okay.
That's cute.
Um, yeah, well, I mean, that's cute compared to the prices we deal with now. Um, but it is interesting that our first bounty we learn about isn't a pirate. It's a
Mm-hmm.
mountain bandit. I think his bounty poster even doesn't say like wanted by the Marines. I think it says like the Coast Guard or something. Like it has a different wanted thing on it. That might be a character later. I might be misremembering. But one of the bounties for someone who isn't a pirate is actually not being offered by the Navy, but by like a Coast Guard or something. I think it might have been the Mountain Bandit, but I don't remember. Um, so he shows up, is mad that the pirates drank all the booze, breaks a bottle over Shanks, dousing him in grog, knocking him to the floor, and then cutting up Mariko's table and then leaving. The pirates don't really react because the bandits aren't really doing anything. They're just waving their dicks around. So as soon as they leave, the pirates, start laughing. Shanks starts cleaning up, and Luffy gets mad because like Luffy is like kid Luffy, like not hyper energetic Luffy we have now. I'm talking like baby Luffy, and he's like his idols just stood there and let these people talk shit to them. Like, shouldn't they have fought them? Aren't they strong? Like, why are they so weak? And it is a good learning moment for Luffy, which will become important later on around Bellamy, actually. Um,
Mm-hmm.
where Shanks is like, they're just idiots. Why would I do something to hurt these idiots? Like, they're not hurting us. They're just being assholes. Like, they weren't hurting me. It's kind of a waste of food, but I mean, that happens. There's no reason spilling a bunch of blood over someone just being a bit of an asshole. Which is a good lesson. I wish more
Yeah.
people. I wish more people followed that lesson in life. Um, it's at this point where we find out that Luffy's been trying to go with Shanks and his sailing crew, but again, Luffy is extremely young, and can't swim. He's not a very strong swimmer. So while Shanks is like laughing and tidying up and whatnot after delivering this life lesson to Luffy, we see Luffy in the background while Shanks is in the foreground, and Luffy has opened a chest and found a fruit in it, and has started to eat it, and is making a face like it's pretty ugly.
Actually, the box was already open for some reason.
The box is open, right, and he just sees the purple fruit there with the swirls and goes to eat it.
And I wonder why the box was open if it's so valuable.
I think they were
It's like
looking.
Shanks wanted it to happen.
I thought they were looking it up in the Devil Book, in like the manga, to figure out like what fruit it was. Like because there is a physical book that has a list of devil fruits in it. Which
Yeah.
again, you think if people in the East Blue had, they'd know that they were real. But Shanks doesn't live in the East Blue. He lives wherever the fuck Shanks wants to live. because he's strong enough to not care about the calm belt. Um, so I thought. I thought in the I don't have my copy. I couldn't take my One Piece volumes with me to Japan, so they're still in Canada. But I think they were trying to figure out what devil fruit it was, and they had just found out that it was the gum gum fruit.
I can grab
And
my
that's
manga real quick.
yeah, and that's why they had it open. And Luffy eats it, and Shanks notices that Luffy ate something disgusting, and then looks at the chest and sees that it's open, and he freaks out. He's like, "Did you eat this?" And Luffy's like, "Yeah, it was terrible." And Shanks picks him up by the heels and starts violently shaking him. Spit it up now, every bite. And Luffy's just confused, and everyone's freaking out. And then Luffy's legs extend, and his face hits the ground because he's now become rubber. And everyone has the moment of silence, and Luffy's like, What happened?" And Shanks explains to him, "You just ate the devil, like the Gum Gum no Mi. You ate a devil fruit. Your body will now be made of rubber, and you will never be able to swim ever." And we cut to the outside of the bar, and Luffy like screaming, "What?" Um, and this is our introduction to devil fruits and their curse, which is not only that you can't swim, you become an anchor. Once you're in water above your waist, I think Oda has officially said is about the cutoff. You as a devil fruit user, you just lose all of your strength and just like go numb and can't do things until you're very strong and have a lot of willpower, which is really difficult. And even then, you can never like properly swim. You might be able to float water a little bit, tread water a little bit. But yeah, so Luffy, this kid who wanted to be a pirate and aspired to be on the crew, but wasn't allowed because he wasn't a strong enough swimmer, now can never swim. um, which is pretty funny to me. I believe at this point there is a cut um, to a few days later where Mariko is freaking out that the mountain bandits are back, and she's running to get the mayor. And the mayor and her run off and find the mountain bandits beating up Luffy, who's trying very feebly with his gum gum powers to fight back. Um, and it's this really good scene of the bandits being, assholes while holding Luffy in like a dangerous position. And then Shanks and crew show up, and we get one of the best lines in all of One Piece, where one of the mountain bandits puts a gun to Shanks' head and says, "Hey, stay there or we'll shoot you." And Shanks looks at him, points at his gun, and says, "That's not for making threats. You don't point a gun at someone if you're not ready to kill them." At which point we see a gun shoot, and one of Shanks' men has pulled a gun and killed the bandit instantly. And I'm like, that's fucking metally shit. That's right. You don't use a gun to threaten someone's life. You don't point a gun at someone's head unless you're pulling the trigger. Damn straight. I don't know if you like that scene as much as I do, but damn, that is a good scene.
It's just so badass.
It's so true though. It's just like
Yeah.
it's really good, and like it really shows a bit of Shanks's character, and like he is strong enough to not need to pull a gun on you to be threatening. And he's so strong that the idea of pulling a gun on him as a threat is funny. Like, don't do that. What are you've pulled your gun on me. Do you know how dangerous that is for you? Like, because it's not a threat to him. It's you pulled a gun on me. You mean to kill me. My crew won't allow that. Instantly shot in the head dead. To which the mountain bandits scream out like that wasn't fair. And the pirates go, "What do you think you're dealing with, saints? We're pirates. What's wrong with you?" We get a moment where the mountain bandit leader urges the men to charge and attack the pirates. They start charging, and Ben Beckham steps forward and says, "I'll take care of them on my own. It shouldn't be that hard." And then we see him with the butt of a rifle start beating them all off. And it cuts to black, because again, this isn't animated. And we cut back very quickly, and all of the mountain bandits are on the ground beaten the fuck up. And Beckman's like, if you want to come after us, you better bring a warship, because this was nothing for me. And it's like, well, all right then. It's like, okay. I'm a little bummed we didn't get to see Yasop do anything here. Because as much as I hate Yasop, he's played up later as this very skilled character, especially in some of the filler episodes. But we never see him do anything. And I just think this would have been a
Yeah.
good chance to see, because Ben Becken got to do something. The heavy man who's always eating got to do something whose name I can never remember. Even though you just told it me, I can't remember it.
Lucky roll.
Oh, Lucky Roll. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll remember it. I'll remember it now. All right, Lucky Roll, Lucky Roll, Lucky Roll. Okay. And like Yasop hasn't done anything yet, but he's like also one of the special people who doesn't look like a generic pirate. At this point, we realize Shanks's crew is strong, which is was already sort of apparent because they had a devil fruit, but like we now get a feeling of how strong they are. But we also get to see how much like Luffy Shanks is, because the Mountain Bandit throws a smoke bomb and runs away with Luffy. And Shanks just goes, ah, fuck, I let my guard down. What do we do? What do we do? He's gone. He took Luffy. I'm such an idiot. It's just like, I know who you are. Like, I know the end of this story. What the fuck's wrong with you? Like, in no universe should you ever be letting your guard down this much, you fucking idiot. Like, because as we'll find out later, Shanks is pretty strong, even beyond what we might think he is. Um, so then we cut to the Mountain Bandit, who has stolen a dinghy, and laughing maniacally that they never expect the Mountain Bandit to run to see those silly pirates. And Luffy's still trying to like beat him up feebly because he's like 5. Um, and the man's like, "Hey, listen, I don't really need you anymore, so I guess I'm gonna throw you into the fucking ocean to die." And then he does. And so this is a part that's always annoyed me because Luffy should definitely start sinking here, and he definitely floats a little too long for a devil fruit use,
Mm-hmm.
which I've always found really weird. But at this point, we learn that the island that Luffy is living on has its own personal monster, a little baby sea king, um, which shows up, and the mountain bandit gets eaten by this massive thing that just swallows the ship whole. And then it notices a little baby Luffy flopping in the water trying to stay afloat as desperately as he can. And it charges at him in this really horrible animation. It's really bad. And we get a cut, and then we see the monster like pull off to the side, its mouth closed, and we come back and we see that Luffy is sort of tucked into Shanks's arm and pulled off to the side, and Shanks has dropped his pirate's jacket, his coat, his captain's coat, and he's just wearing his like hot white shirt that definitely be sticking to him and see through and very attractive. Uh, and then we get a preview to something called Hockey, which is great because this is another one of those things where Oda's like, in the first 5 episodes of One Piece, I'm going to just show you something that won't become relevant for a few hundred episodes, but is extremely important. Um, like Zoro calling Luffy the son of the devil and all that other stuff. We see Shanks stare at the Sea King and tell it to piss off, and it runs away like a scared little guppy. Uh, which is a really sick moment. Like they
Mm.
really play it up. Like you really feel that the Sea King is afraid of Shanks, which is super cool. It's a great moment. Our first
Yeah.
introduction to hockey before we knew what hockey was. How much cooler was this moment not knowing that hockey was a thing? Like, does that make it worse? Like, I think it's slightly less cool that we know he just has Conqueror's hockey. I always found this so much cooler when I thought Shanks was just such a fucking badass that he just scared it away by looking at it.
Hmm.
How do you feel
I
about
never
it?
really thought about that.
Yeah? I I always thought it was so cool that he was just so strong that the animal like was like, I need to run away. And then they like introduce hockey. I'm like, oh, Shanks just has Conqueror's hockey. I mean, it's super cool, but like, I thought he was just naturally terrifying to that monster. Like I don't know. I it doesn't like ruin it for me, but like I did think it was cooler before I knew about hockey. But maybe that's just
I
because we
think it's
see so
just good
many.
that hockey gets introduced so early
Yeah,
without us
it's
really knowing.
exactly. Well, even Oda didn't know what he was doing with hockey fully until after the time skip, which is why when we see it
Mm,
later, it's so different than after the time skip in appearance and like how it works, which is cool.
yeah.
So Shanks has saved Luffy. The monster runs away, and they're just sort of standing in the water. Like it's supposed to be that Shanks is swimming, but he's not moving. Like he's just like static in the water, which I find the most unbelievable part of this entire thing. It's just that he's just
It's
like
just
hover.
floating.
Yeah, he's just hover. Yeah, but he's not bobbing in the water with the waves. Like he's just perfectly standing still. Um, and we see for the first time Shanks from the side and realize that as he grabbed Luffy and pulled him out of the way, the Sea King took off with his arm, which is not bleeding, which is not how arms work. There's a bit of blood on his torn sleeve and maybe a little bit in the water around him, but he is not actively bleeding, having just lost an arm. And this will come up later, but it is a really cool moment where Luffy is crying and Shanks is like, "What's wrong? It's okay. Moriko told me how you defended me." We find out that Luffy only attacked the mountain bandits because they were bad mouthing Shanks, and Luffy wasn't going to stand up to them insulting his friend, basically. And that's why when earlier we found when the pirates showed up, and the mountain bandits is like, "Hey, this has nothing to do with you," and they're like, "Listen, you can spit on me, you can throw food on me, you can shout at me till you're blue in the face. But the second you hurt one of my friends, I'm gonna fucking kill you." And it's good. It's a good moment. And Luffy definitely
Yeah.
takes that lesson to heart for the rest of the series. Um,
Hmm.
uh, and there's just this beautiful moment where he's just trying to calm Luffy down because Luffy is crying, and Luffy's like, "But Shanks, your arm," and that's when we see that he's missing an arm. And Shanks, in the ultimate badass mode, is like, "It's just an arm. It's okay, buddy. You're all right." And I'm like, that would hurt so much. You're not even bleeding, you fucking monster. Get out of the water. um, which he does. He goes back to shore. They save Luffy. Within a few days later, him and his crew are getting ready to leave. They're going off on another voyage. His stump is all bandaged up as he's now an amputee. Um, and Luffy is there with him, and he says, "I'm not going to ask to come with you this time. I'm going to become a pirate of my own, and I'm going to set out to sail and be a great pirate." And Shanks makes a joke at him about being a little kid and how that's never going to happen. And Luffy then makes the declaration that he will surpass Shanks and become king of the pirates. And the whole crew sort of stops and sort of looks at him while he does it. And they're sort of chuckling to themselves, but Shanks seems to take it like pretty seriously. Gets down on one knee and gives Luffy his hat. Uh, which is very special to Shanks, as we found out earlier. We don't know why yet, but it's a piece of his treasure. And the pair of them say goodbye with Shanks. I thought in the manga Shanks like specifically said to Luffy, "When you become a great pirate one day, come back to me and give me this hat back." But in the anime, Shanks just thinks that. He doesn't say it to Luffy. There are some disparities between my memory of the manga Romance Dawn and the episode. Because I don't think we saw. Did we see Luffy in this episode cut himself?
Nope.
Yeah, see, that
That
was
only
weird.
happens in the manga.
Yeah, yeah, because so in the manga, Luffy, to prove he's tough to the pirates, stabs himself in the face with a sword, which is why Luffy has a scar on his face. And that's the precursor to them being at the bar with Shanks like bandaging up his face and buying him a glass of milk and juice and whatnot. Because Luffy just stabbed himself in the face and has a scar there for the rest of his life. Um, but I did notice that that wasn't in the episode, and I'm sure I've seen that animated before. So maybe in some versions of the anime it happened. Maybe it happened in the Four Kids one. I don't remember.
I
But
just know that Roman Stone got reanimated at some point.
Yeah, exactly. Like I've definitely seen it, but that happened basically in the manga. And I'm pretty sure in the manga, Luffy makes a promise to Shanks that he will see him again, and bring the hat back to him. Which would be super weird if at some point soon in the story, Luffy just shows up to Shanks and is like, "Hey, I'm pretty tough," and Shanks goes, "Yeah, you are." And he goes, "Here's your hat back." Like he's like, "All right, thanks." And Luffy just loses the hat. Like I don't think that's ever gonna happen. Uh, I personally think Shanks is probably gonna die before that happens, but whatever. That's just my prediction for how the story's going. But that was episode 4. We cut back. Zoro and Luffy have caught his hat. Luffy has put it back on. Zoro's exclaiming that they're very hungry. Luffy spots a bird up in the sky and says we should eat that. And he says, "How are we gonna get it?" Luffy does his gum gum thing, shoots up into the sky. The bird looked pretty small in the distance, but that was because it was off in the distance. It's actually very big, and it catches Luffy in its beak and flies away. And Zoro begins immediately speedboating after them with his, his little oars, beating furiously. And that's the episode.
Yeah,
Yeah, anything else you want to add to it? That was the weird version of Romance Dawn.
not really. I just wrote bird up
Yeah, I didn't actually write anything about the
for
bird.
some
I almost
reason.
forgot about it.
And at the very end, we get a little teaser for Buggy again.
Yes, we do. We do get more Buggy teasers. Oh, I literally wrote down Buggy hype to the hype music. Because they play one of the One Piece has very good music, not just in the openings, but like in the
Yes.
episodes. And they use the same tracks a lot to denote very certain things. And they were doing a teaser for Buggy with like the hype music that they play when they're ready for a hype thing to happen,
Mm,
which is great. And yeah, that's the episode.
yeah.
And then we're on to episode 5, uh, which begins with Nami being chased, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct.
Yes, because Nami has made her way to where Buggy is to steal back the map, which she has done successfully, but she's being chased and she's running. Um, at which point the bird that is carrying Luffy gets shot out of the sky. Why? Because we cut over to Buggy. And we are introduced to Buggy the Clown, Buggy D Clown, as many fans like to call him. Who has a very big red nose, but you should never say that out loud. Um, for many reasons. And basically, one of his crew, they're all keeping an eye over this thief who stole a chart of the Grand Line from him. And one of them calls out that they see a bird, something in the air flying over the city, and Buggy just says, "Take it out. Just shoot it. If anything moves out there, take it out." So the bird gets hit with a cannon. Luffy falls down on the ground and basically lands on top of Nami, who immediately adapts to the situation by calling him boss and saying that he was the one who set her up to steal the map. So that the goons chasing her switch their attention to him so she can get away. Uh, at which point she begins climbing a building to get a better view of them killing Luffy, I guess, because she assumes he's going to die. But by the time she gets to the top of the building, he has beaten the shit out of all of the people chasing her. And she's like, "Wow, you just beat up 3 men with sabers." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm hungry." Like, who the fuck are you? Get out of here. I'm hungry. So she introduces herself. We finally learn her name is Nami. It's kind of funny to me that she's introducing herself with her real name. I find that super weird for her character. Uh, I don't think Nami would do that. And she describes herself as a thief who steals from pirates, which we've seen her been doing for the last 4 episodes. Though she also tried to steal from the Navy, but whatever. They weren't much better than pirates. And we find out that um, she has a goal to make how much was it? 100 million berries? I think I have written down
Yeah,
here.
100 million.
Um, for reasons she hasn't explained why yet, but that's her goal. Luffy doesn't really seem interested. However, there was a thing that I didn't quite bring up with the buggy pirates who stole her boat, or who she stole their boat. She calls out to them the weather is changing, and that their ship, their little dinghy they stole from her, or she left them with is probably going to capsize and get ruined in it. And it's really foreshadowing that she's an excellent navigator because she can really read weather patterns and maps. She's very good at that. Which Luffy finds out because of the way she's just talking and carrying on with herself. Because she offers to get him some food and leads him into a house and starts feeding him someone else's food because everyone in this town has run away because Buggy is here. And he's like, "So you live in this house?" She's like, "I don't live here." And he's like, "Oh, so you're just like a sneak thief?" And she's like, "Hey, only from the bad people." Like, "Hey, o- only from pirates." And he's like, "A thief is a thief." And I'm like, "Luffy, that's true. You're not wrong." Um, So she's trying to get Luffy to help her. He's not really interested. She lets on that she's a navigator, and he's very much interested in her joining his crew, but he mentions that he's a pirate, which sets her off. She says she hates pirates the most in the world. But Nami is incredibly smart, as we've noticed, and really good at manipulating people, so a little light bulb goes off in her head. And she adapts to the situation, hoping to steal more. Um, by having Luffy help her by promising to join him if she does, even though she probably has no intention of doing that. So Luffy's all for it. He says he literally says, "I'll do anything." Sure, like I need a good navigator. You're cute. I'll take you. Like, all right. So she ties him up with a rope and is ready to lead him back to Buggy's. To pretend that she's betrayed her boss and come back, tired of his abusive ways. To sort of endear herself to Buggy so she can steal more of his loot. Luffy is so gung ho for this plan, he's dragging her by the rope, and she's like, "Hey, stop, slow down," which I found very funny because he's all for it. He doesn't know the plan. He's just like, "Ew, if this will get you to be my navigator, let's go." um, and this starts an extremely long-running tradition in One Piece of Luffy being locked up, stuck, or trapped in a place when they really need him to not be. Uh, we'll see this happen to Luffy a lot. We'll see it again in Arlong Park. We'll see it again at Water 7 and a bunch of other places where Luffy just gets stuck somewheres or is in a prison cell or in a box and is stuck and everyone else needs him to not be stuck, but Luffy is stuck. Um which is very funny to me. So she turns him over to Buggy. Buggy throws Luffy in a cage. It accepts Nami into the crew, takes the chart back from her. The whole time she's like endeared herself into the Buggy crew. They're partying. Buggy calls for the Buggy Special, the Buggy Ball Special, which is a big red cannonball they roll up and it blasts down like 8 houses or something. It's like a hyper beam. Uh, Super destructive cannonball. And while this is happening, Zoro arrives, having run into the 3 members of Buggy's crew that had stolen Nami's ship, or Nami's whole thing with them, where he basically ran them over because he was chasing Luffy. Um, and he's like, he was literally like, I forget what he said, but he's like, "Oh my god, stranded people right now, I don't need this. I'm not stopping. Jump in the boat if you can." He like runs them over. And they get in. He's literally like laughing, but it's like, "Ha, I didn't think you'd be able to catch on." And they're like, "Are you trying to kill us? Like, we're pirates. We're gonna kill you." And he's like, "What?" And then beats the shit out of them, off screen, of course, because that can't be animated. And then they're rowing the boat, and he's annoyed because he lost sight of Luffy while dealing with their shit. So he arrives to see the cannon going off, and he's like, "What's that?" And they're like, "That must be one of the captain's beloved buggy balls." And everything seems to be going pretty okay for Nami until Buggy says he's going to use this map to go run wild in the Grand Line and take control of it. To which point we get another one of Luffy's key quirks of a character, which is he doesn't give a shit what anyone else does, but the second they seem to imply they will be king of the pirates, he will say, "Nope, that's me. Fuck you." So in his cage, tied up in rope, he starts challenging Buggy to be king of the pirates. Uh, at which point Buggy has them roll the cannon over to the cage, and they're going to Buggy Ball him. But they're gonna make Nami do it. And this is where we get a moment with Nami's sort of character, which is pretty good, though we see her break this code later. Nami, as she is right now, doesn't like killing. She doesn't mind using Luffy, and even though he's a pirate, she doesn't want to kill him. She'll use him, she'll put him in a situation where he might get hurt by other people, but she's not out to kill anyone. She just wants to steal from bad people to do something with the money that we don't know. So Buggy's like, alright, shoot the cannon, kill him. And she can't bring herself to do it, even though she knows it's going to give the whole game away and the Buggy pirates are probably going to turn on her. Which happens because one of them gets tired of waiting for her to light the match and goes, here's how you do it, and he goes to do it herself, and she bops him on the head with her fold out cane that she keeps tucked in her breasts. I think that's what she hits him with. I don't remember. But she gives him a smack, and of course all the buggies are like the buggy clown circus, basically pirate crew is like, oh, what's this? And Buggy was like, ha, I knew it, because Buggy's actually not stupid. I mean, he is stupid, but he's not stupid, you know? Right? Like Buggy is pretty dumb, but he's very smart about being very dumb. So we get to see that Nami doesn't want to kill people, which is an interesting part of her character. I kind of like it. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah,
But
makes sense.
yeah, I like Nami going like, listen, this guy's a pirate, but like, I don't want to kill him. He's just, he's done nothing but help me. Like, I don't want to kill this kid. Which is great. We do see now. Technically, it involves a non-canon character, but by the end of the East Blue Saga, we do see Nami murder someone. Uh, it happens in a canon episode, but the character is non-canon. It's a whole weird thing that happens right at the end of the arc, and we'll talk about it when we get there. But at this point, Nami's back is against the wall. She's surrounded by the Buggy crew and Buggy, and she is fucked. And of course, Luffy is tied up in the cage. Um, at which point, Zoro shows up and sees his captain tied up in a cage and trapped in a box. Um, and so everyone else reacts to Zoro being there because Luffy calls him Zoro. And Nami's like, "What? His other crew member he mentioned is the pirate hunter Zoro? What? What?" And Buggy is like, Zoro, you've come for my bounty." And Zoro's like, "No, I'm here for this idiot. I don't care about you. I've given up being a pirate hunter. I don't give a shit about your bounty." And Buggy, being Buggy, goes, "Oh, but I care, because if I kill you, it's totally gonna help my reputation." So they start fighting. And this is where we've sort of been introduced to the fact that Buggy has a devil fruit. I don't remember when or where, but people have been talking about it over the last few episodes. Whenever Buggy gets brought up, it's brought up that he is unkillable, or has a devil fruit ability. He's weird somehow, beyond just being a clown with a big red nose. So him and Zoro fight. It's a single clash of blades, and Zoro cuts him into like 6 pieces. To which Zoro puts his swords away. He's like, all right, well, I mean, I cut him down. You think Zoro would feel a difference in the sword, honestly? And the crew, though, is just laughing. And Zoro's like, hey, I just killed your captain. Like, you gonna just sit there and laugh? It's kind of fucked up. Uh, at which point, we see Buggy float up off the ground behind him, and then a blade shoots through his side, straight from the back, all the way out the front. And we see Zoro go down on one knee, as he just got stabbed in the back. uh, which is brutal and totally Buggy style and so good because it's so Buggy's character to just stab a man straight in the back. It's so good. I love this moment. And we see Buggy's body pop, 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 pop back into place, and we find out that he ate the bara bara no mi? Bara bara? Is that right?
Yes. Para
Yeah,
para no mi.
the bara bara no mi, which is funny to me because bara is like, buff Japanese gay porn, but I'm into it. Which basically means the chop chop fruit. And he is a man who cannot be cut, as he can do all sorts of weird, freaky things with his body that involves popping it off into different pieces. And he can even make those pieces float around, as we saw him, like, choke a man out invisibly, like force choke someone earlier, but he was actually just choking him with his hand that had dislocated from his body, but the way they drew it and animated it made it look like he was just using the force to choke him. Which is funny because like he's definitely just doing it with his hand, but they're just not animating his hand to make it look more mysterious. It's really dumb. Um, but it's an extremely powerful devil fruit and makes it pretty difficult for someone like Zoro to beat because it's a man who can't be cut, basically. So he's taunting Zoro and getting ready to kill him, at which point Luffy lets off that it was totally a dick move to stab Zoro in the back. And that Buggy is a big nosed piece of shit. And that, of course, triggers the Buggy button. And Buggy hurls a knife at Luffy, which he catches with his teeth. And says, I'm going to kick your ass through the dagger. And then proceeds to break the dagger with his teeth. Because Zoro fucking Luffy is a monster. There is a beautiful scene where Buggy is explaining sort of like what his power is, and Luffy is like, "Oh wow, so he's like a monster." And then a little text bubble that pops up and points at Luffy and writes it that he is in fact a rubber boy. And it's one of these beautiful jokes that is very long running in the series where Luffy sees someone else's devil fruit and goes, "Wow, you're really weird." While he himself is made of rubber and does way weird shit. And it's just a great running joke in One Piece that Luffy does this with other people's devil fruits. And I like that this is one of the few subtle times where the show is just like, this is coming from this freak. You could totally miss it too if you weren't like looking at the screen because it's all in text. It doesn't say anything. It's just like Luffy's like, wow, what a weird freak. It's just like this is coming from the Rubber Boy. I found it very funny. Um, so yeah, that all happens. Luffy makes the monster joke, and Zoro takes this opportunity to come up with a plan. Um, Now earlier when they had lit the cannon on Luffy, Buggy lights the cannon to sort of shoot Luffy here. And Zoro starts fighting off some of the goons, I believe, because Luffy tells him to run. And Nami runs up and grabs the rope and puts the fire out with her hands. I think this might have happened before Zoro shows up, actually. I might have miswrote where that happened. But in order to save Luffy from getting hit by that cannon, she grabbed a hold of the flaming, like, wick with her hands and held it till the flame went out, which sounds really brutal. They did a real, like, good scorching sound, scorching flesh sound effect on that. It was really disgusting. Um, however, the wick had burned pretty low. So Zoro, still with a brutal stab wound, like straight through his body, goes over to this massive cannon and flips it over facing Buggy and the rest of the Buggy crew. Which looks like not only would it be hard, but it hurts so much. Like he immediately like collapses onto his knees and can barely breathe. He's in so much pain. And he looks at Nami and is just like, light it. And she's like, what? Oh and runs over and lights the cannon. And Buggy's like, wait, no, that's facing me now. Fuck and Buggy cannon blasts off and backfires and hits the crew. I think that's the end of the episode.
Yeah.
But it is definitely not the end of this little arc or Buggy. I think there's still like another 3 episodes here or 2 episodes here.
At least two.
Yeah, because they have to introduce the dog and then they actually have to do the fighting. I think it's 3 because I think Buggy gets almost a whole episode of fighting with Luffy on his own, which is gonna be great because that's a great fight. Luffy v
Yes.
Buggy early on in One Piece before Luffy gets powered up is like a good fight.
Mm-hmm.
Later, Buggy doesn't stand a chance ever. Basically, then after this little arc, when any other time Buggy and Luffy interact, Luffy could just kill Buggy at will. It's very funny. Not that he would, because he's Luffy. But yeah,
Yeah.
was there anything else you wanted to add to this episode? We kind of went through this one pretty quick. It was just a lot of
It
fighting and
just
action.
I find it interesting how actually intimidating Buggy can be when he's
Yeah, he's like
serious.
evil as fuck. He
Also
seems
that the
super
Paranomie
intimidating.
is fucking broken.
Yeah, he is a strong devil fruit, and like we learn more about it later when Bucky appears for the second time. Like
Mm.
the full extent of things it can do, and it's pretty fucking cool. Like he can fly, like which is pretty fucked up. Um, I'm curious what Buggy's like devil fruit awakening would be,
Oh.
right? Because that's not something I've ever really thought about before. But we'll get to devil fruit awakenings probably around the Alabaster arc, because I think Crocodile is the first character in One Piece to bring up Devil Fruit Awakening. I think. Uh, so we,
Is
we'll
he?
we'll he definitely implies it. I don't think he specifically uses the word awakening. But I believe he's the first character to ever talk about like using your devil fruit and training with it so much that you transcend its normal abilities. Because that's what he did.
Mm.
That's the reason why, like, something that annoys some fans is that Crocodile doesn't use hockey in his fight with Luffy, but he definitely should know about it. But it sort of gets written off because he supposedly spent like a decade just training his devil fruit to be amazing with it. And he is. Like he basically destroys a country with that devil fruit. Like he's fucking strong. He just loses to
Yeah.
Luffy because he keeps refusing to kill Luffy. But we'll cover how much I love Crocodile later. Um, But yeah, those are the first 5 episodes of One Piece, and they are fantastic and terrible in many different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, are there any other notes or anything you want to bring up, or any favorite moments in these 5 episodes?
Not really.
No, what would be your favorite moment in the first 5 episodes? This would be a fun little way to end each episode with a favorite moment from the 5 episodes we cover.
I gotta say the promise between Luffy and Shanks. That
That's a
made
good
me
one.
cry.
It doesn't quite get me. If I was reading the manga, I might cry. The anime didn't do it, but the manga might. It's a good moment. I think. What would my favorite moment be? I think it might be the conversation with Luffy and Kobe.
That's such a
And
good moment.
Luffy's just absolute decision like I'm going to do this. Because again, it's just this beautiful writing tool where there is suspense in this story. We worry for Luffy in these fights. But Luffy has told us
Mm-hmm.
he is going to be king of the pirates. And I trust Luffy. Right? Like I shouldn't be suspenseful because at the end of the day, I know Luffy should win. It might be a rough ride getting there, but I'm fully convinced that he's going to be king of the pirates. He's made me believe it with how assuredly he's willing to
Yeah.
die for it, and I think that's a great moment. All right, well that's been the first 5 episodes of One Piece. I want to thank Noriko for talking with me about it, and hopefully we'll be back next week. We might have another friend with us. We'll see.
Yeah.
Uh, hopefully, we'll see if they've caught up. If not, we'll play it by ear. I had a lot of fun, Noriko. I hope you did.
Yeah, I could too.
That's great. Hopefully you'll want to come back next week and we can do it all over again for
Oh
episodes
yeah, for
6
sure.
through 10. Yeah, awesome. All right. Well, I don't know how to do an outro, so I'm gonna let you do it. I'm gonna be quiet
I don't
and
know
let
how
you.
to do an outro either.
Well, one of us has to end it, or else we'll just be recording forever. And I don't think my throat could do that.
Yeah. I guess bye.
All right. That works. All right. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.